the last thing I was going to have in my resume for Catholic school was I was going to be a drug addict. The absolute last thing.
Usually people have no intention of ever becoming addicted. I've never met anybody, in fact, who said, I want to become addicted to opioids or any other drug. It's something that happens to them. It takes them by surprise.
It's sad, very sad. I think first and foremost, everyone needs to realize that this is a disease. This is not a choice. There is nothing to be ashamed of.
Addiction is a disease of the brain that affects the neurocircuitry of different functions in the brain, particularly reward, impulse control, judgment, memory, motivation. About 90% of disability, disease, and premature mortality between ages 10 to 24 in this country is to do with alcohol and illicit drugs.
I just finished my senior year of football. I was captain of varsity football, and I played varsity hockey, and I was captain for varsity lacrosse for junior year, and would have been senior year. But second game into the season for hockey, we're playing Hingham, Massachusetts, and I went to go check the kid on the other team, and I broke my wrist. And my father drove me to the emergency room, and the solution to the pain, as we probably already know, was prescription pain medication at the time. I had real bad nerve damage, so I lost feeling in my fingertips, and they had to go in and do surgery and operate on my wrist. And they put pins in my arm, and they repaired the nerves. And after the surgery, the solution to the pain was more prescription pain medication, of course. And shortly after that, I got my wisdom teeth pulled, and the solution to the pain was prescription pain medication.
You know, the stigma that is associated with addiction is it's the guy or woman under the bridge, homeless person, which could not be further from the truth. It's the athletes. It's the son that hung out with your boy playing hide and go seek. It's the daughter that used to play with your dolls with your daughter. It's anybody in between. And I tell people, addiction can hit anybody from the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company all the way down to the person who eats out of that dumpster of that multi-billion-dollar company, everybody in between.
I had a lot of friends during that time who were also getting injured from sports or whatever and getting prescribed prescription pain meds. And first we were taking them, just because, it was, we thought we were having fun, we thought we were enjoying ourselves, the high that it produced, and it was just more a weekend thing. We would only do them together.
One of the things that we know that influences onset of drug use is the perception that people have of how many other people in their peer group are using it. So oftentimes people are quite surprised when they learn actually what the true rate of use is among their peers rather than what they perceive it to be. When people try a substance, they're saying, well, I'm just going to try it. People have no intention of becoming addicted to it. What happens is that what becomes an every now and again kind of thing, I'll try it. Hey, that felt good. Maybe I'll do it next week. I'll try it again next week. And it becomes, the occasions of trying it become closer together. They might need to take more of it to get the same effect as they used to, so they double the dose next time or the time after that because they want to get the effect. And what happens is the drug using priority, whereas it was down here when they started and there were other things that they like to do in their life, sports, video games, whatever it was, hanging out with friends, that starts to decrease and the drug use becomes a higher and higher priority. In fact, what happens is that the drug use becomes the top #1 priority every moment of every day, believe it or not. And any person who's been addicted will tell you this.
my good buddy of mine, who I was running with at the time, his mother had flown him down to Miami for his birthday, for him and his girlfriend to go spend the weekend there. And they went down there, and he obviously was sick when he got down there, so he told her, I'm going to go to pick up a pack of cigarettes or a pack of gum, and went to the beach and attempted to rob a couple on the beach and pulled a knife on them, and it ended up being an off-duty police officer for West Palm, and they shot and killed him on St. Patty's Day 2009, and we were high for the wake. You know, the people that showed up in that inner circle that hung out with him, and the funeral next day, I didn't even make it to his own funeral, you know, because our connection had to meet us that day, so we didn't even go. That's how selfish and self-centered we were. That's how terrible a friendship we had, that everything came down to a common denominator, and that was the drugs. The drugs were the common denominator in a lot of relationships I had.
Let me show you what this drug is doing to these people, and then you decide if you want to do it.
Frank Huntley is the voice behind the Pill Man, a 46-year-old father of two who was robbed of 15 years of his life, his family, his business, because of prescribed opiates.
I didn't go out on the street because I wanted a drug, okay? I went out there and I needed it for pain, and that's what I did.
Frank's descent into opiate abuse began in the 90s when his doctor prescribed him Percocet, OxyContin, and methadone for a long-term injury.
And I kept taking it, and they were going to keep giving me my 20 milligrams.
The analogy is, the intention is, I want to go on a plane ride to a nice vacation destination. That's the pill I'm taking. That's my intention. So I'm off on vacation. Take the pill, I'm on vacation. But I don't realize this hijacker's on the plane. And that is the thing that happens, is that people don't realize what they're getting into. They find themselves taken over by the drug, so that what was once their own free will to try it becomes a compulsion beyond their control. In fact, they are using in the end against their will.
And that is the most devastating thing that I've ever been through, and that I think any parent can go through. Like with many parents, I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and that's where the stigma comes from, because a lot of people do think that this only happens to other people. And that's why I hope to get this education out to people, because it's not something that happens to other people. It's not something that happens to uneducated people, people from a low income, or people from, you know, a lifestyle that is very different from ours. Addiction happens to anybody.
Now the only thing that matters is, from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment you're unconscious at night, is you're thinking about planning to get the drug, use it, or get over the effects. That's the nature of addiction. People don't plan that. That's what happens to people.
A lot of times, and we see people start off with pain, you know, they were injured and they started on pain medications, and then the medications become too expensive, so they retreat to heroin, which is cheaper. The social excitement of getting high, okay, is there. The sad part is you're always chasing that first real high, and you never attain it again. And you have to use more to meet that need.
People need to think about how to kind of get the services they need over the long term. And there are medications that people can take for opioids, for example, like methadone and buprenorphine, which people can take for years and do to stabilize and help them to recover. There are other groups, like mutual help groups, like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, which are freely available in the community. People can become very involved in those groups, and that can be a pathway into long-term recovery. But the key to remember is that once people become addicted, it can take a long time for them to get and then stay in remission and achieve long-term recovery, because the brain has to actually re-change, right? Has to recalibrate, readjust, readapt to the absence.
Hijacked by medication, stuck in a cloud of opiates, Frank took it upon himself to recover.
I just finally went in there and said, listen, I really don't want to take this drug anymore. I vomited. I got sick. I got it out of me. And it took a long time. It wasn't easy. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you, a year and a half, guys. And I feel every pain, but I still won't take a pill because I look at him every day at my house. When I first built him, he was at the end of my bed for at least 3 to 4 months. Me just looking at him.
Pillman is a powerful image of abuse and yet hope.
I just want to show people that you can finally want something. As bad as you wanted that drug, as bad as you wanted anything, I just want to show that you can change from this to 130 pounds to somebody that's almost 165.
The recovery process can take quite a long time. So what we know from studies that have been done is that once people start to engage in the recovery process, it can take several years before they actually get a full year of remission. That is no use for a whole year. And we call that full sustained remission. And that's an important milestone to get 1 year of full sustained remission. But it can take up to 8 years to achieve 1 year of full sustained remission. 8 years of getting some time away from alcohol and drugs, relapsing, getting a little bit more time, and so on.
So there's a long way to go, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen.
You know, people weren't ashamed. If people spoke up and inspired advocacy, guess what? You're going to have more policies, more resources available to provide that continuum of care that, as we all know, is so desperately needed.
Please, whatever you do, just spread awareness.